Cloud Strife is the main protagonist in both Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. He also appears in the spin-off game Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus. His appearance is marked by spiky blonde hair, vivid blue eyes, dark purple or blue clothing, a spiky dark grey cauldron on his left shoulder, and his Buster Sword. At first, Cloud displays a cold and uncaring demeanor, but he gradually overcomes romantic and psychological problems and adapts to his role as a leader.
Hey guys, and welcome back to this action figure review. Today we are going to take a retro look at this action figure from the Advent Children animated movie, I guess. This one was released by Square Enix in the PlayArt Sky line, and this was released, I believe, around 2006. Now, I personally don't collect PlayArt Sky. They are very expensive, and generally, size-wise, they don't fit in with anything else, such as is the case with Cloud Strife here. But in this case, I got Cloud Strife and I got Sephiroth because, well, when I was growing up, my brothers, both of them, were big Final Fantasy fans. So, even though being totally blind and I was unable to play the game, I heard all about Cloud Strife and his gigantic sword, and Sephiroth and his impressive design, and all the intricacy about from the game. Later, around college time, I also read some really well written fan fiction based on Final Fantasy. So you can say that getting Cloud Strife was a nod to my childhood, even though I knew I probably wouldn't really like him. And he probably wouldn't really fit in with anything, especially back in when I got him, it was 2008, so a couple of years after he was released. And around that time, what's really big is like Sota toys and Marvel Legends and Masters of the Universe Classic and DC Universe Classics and those stuff. And Cloud here just does not fit in with any of them. And I'm not even just talking about design wise. I mean, he definitely has that anime look. To me, he's like a cast off Super Saiyan, uh, with that hair and gigantic sword. He's like, you know, cousin to future Trunks. Um, no, I'm not even just talking about design. I'm talking about size-wise. This figure stands 7.5 inches tall. So, considering back in 2006, 2008-ish, most figures, unless they were supposed to be really big characters, did not really break the 7-inch mark. This guy was gigantic. Like standing him next to your Toy Biz Marvel Legend or Sota Street Fighter, uh, it's just ridiculous. Okay, he's not going to fit in. Now, this is one thing that time kind of solved a little bit for us because as time goes by, nowadays we have more and more action figures made in the 7-inch scale, such as in the case of NECA, Dungeons and Dragons, NECA's Predator, Alien, NECA's various other properties. They are more or less in the 7-inch scale, and McFarlane toys definitely play in the 7-inch scale. Even with your mythic legions and a lot of third-party stuff, they are constantly flirting in that 7-inch scale range. And of course, Storm collectibles always scale on the bigger side. So nowadays, Cloud Strife actually have more friends he can play with. But does he play well? Well, this figure uh, is quite faithful to what I understand his movie design. Take him off the stand here, and my one thing is that I find the proportion really awkward. I mean, with the hip cape cloak thing on, it's not too noticeable. Let me take the sword off his out of his hand for a second. Now, this uh, cloak cape thing is actually removable. I did not even know that until just now, like when I was prepping for this review, and I was just like, hey, I think this can come off. I'm not sure why. I don't know if he ever goes without it, but I mean, it's cool. I'm always for removable doodash. So you just like these are basically pegs that go into the holes on the front of the piece, and then you undo the snaps, and then yeah, you just pull it off like that. Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. Like without it, look how skinny he is, right? And his legs are super long, and his arm very. I guess they're animated. It's like really smooth. You can tell there's supposed to be muscle there, but it's not very well sculpted muscle to be sure. So without his hip cape thingy, he is very lanky and very skinny and just kind of gangly, awkward looking. Like the whole build honestly reminds me of the Edward Scissorhand action figure from McFarlane's movie Maniac line. Like he has about that kind of proportion, just like long legs and very scrawny body and so on. There's a different version of this guy you can get that come with his bike, the Fenra bike. Unfortunately, I was never able to find that at an affordable price on the secondary market, so I just got him individually. Uh, Maybe I should have got the bike back then when it was still uh, well in the $100 range. By the way, this guy back in 2008 was about $65 when I got him. I believe he was $85 because I got him. I ended up getting him on eBay. Um, so back then, I don't know how many of you remember that most figures back then were like $12, $15. So, $60, $70, $80 for this guy was very high, in my opinion. And is he worth the price? Well, personally, I don't think so. But if you are a big Final Fantasy fan, then maybe he'll scratch that itch and fill that fill that niche. Anyway, let's look at some posing photos and articulation shots before we come back for the next segment. This figure was produced by Square Annex in the PlayArts Final Fantasy VII Advent Children's series. There's two versions of this guy. You can get him on his own, like the way I have him here, or you can get him with his Fenra motorcycle. I really wanted the motorcycle, but I could never find it for a reasonable price. This figure stands about 7.5 inches tall, comes with two alternate right arms. Not sure why, because they both seem very similar or exactly the same. His gigantic buster sword, a display stand, and if you count his removable waistcoat cloak thingy, then that can be counted as an accessory as well. Other than that, that's about it. Articulation wise, he has 16 points of articulation, but sadly, a lot of them are not super useful. Design wise, he has a lanky, rather stylized animated look, which is true to the source material but not super realistic. Now, no, I usually going to talking a little bit about the character's backstory and stuff like that, but honestly, I read the background on Final Fantasy. Was this 6 or 7? This was 6, right? Um, I still can't make heads or tail of it. Suffice to say, Cloud Strife is the main character in that particular Final Fantasy story, and he is some kind of a mercenary who has, gotten so jaded by what he saw in the war and stuff like that, and he was betrayed by his own unit, and then found out that he was some kind of super soldier, and then got that he was actually cloned, and he had to go fight Sephiroth, who was the main villain, who was like the, I guess, the more perfect super soldier. So it's really convoluted. Like the whole story, I honestly prefer the next storyline, the next game, the one with the Leon's Scroll Leon heart. That one I actually can understand more, but the whole story with Cloud Strife in it, it's like, okay, there's a guy with a really big sword, and honestly, it is a really big sword. Like this sword, look how big it is. It's actually taller than him, right? And like this, I can actually use this as a letter opener, right? And I think unless I bring in some like mecha or robot type of character, I think Cloud actually have the biggest damn sword of any figure in my collection, right? Not counting any of the 12-inch like 1/6 scale guys, of course, but like in strictly 112, 110, I don't know what damn scale he is, but in this 6 to 8 inch range, he has the biggest damn sword of anybody on my shelf. So yeah, big sword is definitely his trademark. So basically, it's like a story of Captain America versus the evil super soldier, maybe I don't know, like oh crap, what is the name of that guy that was Captain America's rival? You guys know who I'm talking about. Something soldier. uh, I need to bone up on my Marvel. I haven't reviewed Marvel Legends and stuff like that for quite a while, so I am a little bit rusty on that stuff. It was a Winter Soldier, of course. Yeah, I totally like had a brain fart there, and I had to pause the video and smack myself on the top of the head, and then finally, you know what? It's because I always just think of him as Bucky Barnes, and Winter Soldier is not a name that I really familiar with growing up. So that's my excuse. Anyway, so like the whole Final Fantasy VI game is basically uh is it 6 or 7? I'm still confused. Anyway, it's basically Cloud Strife kind of like Captain America, and then his whole mission is to find out the true story of his birth and the whole cloning stuff, and then there's the evil counterpart Sephiroth, who's like really cool dark character, like Winter Soldier kind of, and they have really big swords and they do a lot of sword fighting, and yeah, that's basically it. um Good music though, I will say. Like Final Fantasy games have awesome music. Anyway, enough wasting time. So Cloud here has about 16 points of articulation, and I guess for something that was made in 2006, it's not too bad. There's no crunch whatsoever in his torso, which is problematic, of course, in action hero. Uh, he does have a ball joint to his head, but the motion is kind of limited by his collar. Um, yeah, that collar just stops the head from going back very far or going to the side very far. But you can tell there's a ball joint in there, and he kind of can look up a little bit. The arm is this not a ball joint, like a uh, hinge and swivel joint combo. So he can go forward and back. He can go out to the side. He can do the T pose, no problem. And he also has bicep swivel, single elbow band that go about 90. But here's the interesting part. Even though there's no butterfly joint and there's no like very easy to use joints, uh, but because his chest is so narrow, he can actually look at that. He can actually do two-handed, double hand pose, right? So um, he can't really cross his arm in front of him, but he definitely can do two-handed pose. There's also a waist swivel, uh, another kind of a hinge swivel joint for the hips. The hip can go out about this far, which give him a good wide side kick, and definitely allow him to ride his motorbike. If only I had the motorbike. Um, Forward, go very high. He can kick very high, like that. Right? That's pretty nice. But it's not going to go back. Okay, there's no backward range because of the butt plate. Uh, the way that it's sculpted, right? The knee, at first, this almost seemed like a double joint knee, but no, it's just a single joint, and it goes back just past 90 degree. It's actually a very deep bend on the knee, and I am actually pretty impressed with how well sculpted the knee joint is. Like there's no really obvious gap, even when the knee is bent. I mean, you can tell there's a joint there, but the sculpt, I guess because this is the way the sculpt, the pant is, and it just seemed very nice. However, if you turn him around, then the back of the knee is a bit of an eyesore. Right? The back of the knee has that giant gap there. Um, his ankle joint is really wonky. Like there's like left and right, like he got the rocker ankle, but there's no turning that you can't turn this. There's no forward and is there forward and back? No, there's no forward and back. So his ankle is basically locked in that position with a bit of rocking back and left and right, and this is very loose. Like this is one of the things I annoy me the most about this figure is that the ankle joint is so loose, and there's no forward and back motion, and there's no turning. So this makes this guy really hard to stand, even though he should be easy to stand because he's so skinny. But because of the ankle, both ankles are very loose. Like, see, it's like really wobbly. this is very hard on standing the character. In addition to that, his bicep swivel is kind of very loose too. I mean, when you are just posing him, it's no problem. But once you start putting his giant sword in his hand, see, see how floppy this is? Like he can't hold that up. He doesn't have the the joint strength to hold up that sword. So posing with this sword, it's very annoying unless you just find some way for him to like when he lifts it up and you don't move him, you can kind of balance it like that, right? Otherwise, there's no way he's going to hold it in front of him without this flopping around like that, right? So this is something that you kind of need to engage the other hand and give him a two-handed pose like that. So essentially, this is a very pricey figure, especially considered back then, and you end up with a figure that have a hard time freestanding and have really loose joints that he can't really pose properly with his swords in a lot of poses. Luckily, they did give us a nice uh, doll style display stand. I said doll style because usually you don't get something like this. Like what's really cool about this is this piece, the clamp on the top, that's actually metal. Right? So this is not some cheap stuff like the stuff we get from McFarlane Toy. This is like actually very well constructed. You got the base and then you got the arm, which is like in two pieces, and adjustable uh, arm too. Like this can be adjusted to different height. If you just want him to stand here looking cool with his sword, then you have the stand all the way to the bottom like this. And then if you want to pose him, well, I don't know, like leaping into the air, then you pull this up. I can't seem to do this while on camera because I'm trying to not knock over my ring light, but let's see. Okay, so we have this all the way to the top, and then get him up there, pose his leg like he's jumping, and then get his sword over this way. Yeah, so now we got a cool leaping kind of pose out of him. So, yeah, luckily they gave us this stand. Otherwise, there's just not a lot you can do with him considering his joint and articulation limitation. By the way, put your sword down for a second. By the way, this piece of shoulder pauldron on his left shoulder, that actually can come off. This is very soft material, and it's attached to his arm. So sometimes when you're moving his arm, this might pop off. And as you can see, there's a peg right on the shoulder there. So you just line that up with a hole under needs the pauldron and you peg it on. So it's actually pretty good. I think this is one thing I would say they at least they design pauldrons that won't limit arm movement. Hint, hint. Four Horsemen Studio. Like seriously, it's time to move on, move beyond pauldrons that can barely move and restrict the figure's movement. Now, let's give us some final words and look at some size comparison shots, even though this guy really doesn't work well with most stuff. But like I said, with today's action figures, he at least doesn't look too out of place. Now, even though I have a sentimental reason to want to get this guy, he's dated and rather loose articulation, limited accessory, high price tag, and the fact that he doesn't really fit in with anything else in this scale. I mean, heck, even with Storm collectible characters, he's a little bit too big because he's like almost 8 inches tall and his official height is only 5'7". So with all that in mind, I can't really, in good conscience, recommend this guy unless you're a big Final Fantasy fan. Thank you for checking out today's review. Please like and subscribe. I'll be back again soon. Please check out my website, it's johnnytiger.com, and my artwork over at tigertactile.com.